The Cure's sixth album, The Head on the Door, is a hyper-focused pop record, bursting with crossover anthems and fan favorites. Combining the imagery of the top and pornography with the ingratiating rush of their dream singles, this hallmark kaleidoscopic album marks the pivot where Robert Smith would begin to make doom and gloom danceable and popular to both alternative and mainstream audiences, breaking the door down in America and rising to number 7 in the UK. What were the crucial decisions that led to The Cure finding themselves amongst the Tina Turners, Whitney Houstons, and Phil Collins of the time? And what is the real story behind the dream that inspired the album's themes and title? Well, buckle up, because today we're going to discuss the creative power of sickly sweet pork, being pursued by flying fluorescent socks, and deriding Duran Duran and then hijacking their hooks. This is the story of The Head on the Door, 40 years on. Ask a cross-section of fans what their favorite Cure album is. Many will tell you it's The Head on the Door. In a discography stacked with classics like Kiss Me, Pornography, and Disintegration, The Head on the Door equally gets a lot of love. It's never cracked my top 5, but I think I understand its appeal. It's a tight economic package, relentlessly upbeat, devoid of the morose, the dour, and the almost depressing sides of the band, making for the soul 80s Cure album you could think about playing at a beach party. Fusing post-punk edge with pop hooks, flamenco guitars, and quirky, irreverent synth flourishes, it represents the perfect balance of accessibility and artistic integrity, an essential era-defining record that ushered in the band's imperial age and helped shape the sound of alternative music to come. Robert Smith's genre-blurring vision starts to really crystallize around this time, fueled by his growing ambition. He starts to take The Cure seriously. But in order to understand why, first we gotta look back at the previous couple years. Describing the lead up to The Head on the Door as prolific would be an understatement of Olympic proportions. Between 1982 and 1984, Robert Smith was juggling an almost absurd workload, splitting his time between fronting The Cure, playing guitar for Susie and the Banshees, and launching The Glove with Steve Severin. In just 2 years, he recorded and toured with multiple bands, wrote and released albums in wildly different styles, and somehow managed to keep each project distinct while barely pausing to breathe. I know for months I promised to document this era in a video. I will bring this episode out soon, promise. For now, here's a brief timeline just so you can understand how bonkers this period was. After weeks of growing tension, things boiled over on May 27th, 1982 in Strasbourg, France, when bassist Simon Gallup and Robert Smith got into a fistfight over a bar tab. Both stormed off and the band temporarily split. They regrouped 3 days later to finish the tour in Belgium on June 11th, after which Gallup left The Cure. In late June, Smith began working with Steve Severin of Susie and the Banshees, first asking him to produce an early version of The Cure's Lament for a flexi-pop magazine single. In October, the Banshees guitarist John McGeoch has a nervous breakdown due to alcohol and the stresses of touring and is sacked by the band, and Smith is asked, for the second time, to fill in as an official member of the Banshees that November. The same month, he's rebooted The Cure as a duo with the left-turn pop single Let's Go to Bed. Laughing at the Christmas lights. In February '83, Robert and the Banshees toured Japan and Oceania. In spring of '83, Severin and Smith spend 12 weeks partying in a studio and come out the other side with the album Blue Sunshine under the name The Glove, which releases in September. 3 months prior, in June, The Cure released the Walk EP. In September, on Robert's half-joking suggestion, the Banshees released their Beatles cover, Dear Prudence. Then The Love Cats comes out in October. By 1984, he's sleeping an hour a day, recording the Banshee's Hyena and Nocturne, The Cure's The Top. When he comes out the other side of this, Smith is completely ragged. In May 1984, Smith quits the Banshees, citing health issues due to an overloaded schedule, being in 2 bands at once. He has totally burned himself out. I joined the Banshees to get away from being a frontman so I could go shopping and go to the beach while Sue had to do all the interviews. But after about a year of that, I found I had everything I needed, and everything was full of sand, so I thought I'd better get back to singing again. So in November '84, wrapping the Top tour, Robert takes a kind of extended vacation, but keeps writing. When the fog clears, he realizes he's been part of an established band with an arguably bigger celebrity fronting it in Susie Sue. And so he's been able to learn a lot of lessons about what you can do as a pop idol, how you can play with media, play with your image. The UK press were becoming increasingly enamored with Robert's pivots between disarmingly honest and press-baitingly dishonest. He was constantly messing with them, leading to them messing with him right back, writing off The Cure and coining terms like Mad Bob and Fat Bob. Around this time, Smith was maturing. He was in his mid-20s, having toured the world. He was starting to be seen as a potential pop star. Even before The Head on the Door and its hit singles, by 1984, he was appearing in British teeny bop pinup magazines alongside glossy photos of Duran Duran, Boy George, and George Michael. Fiction Records boss Chris Perry and Polydor were pushing to market Robert Smith to the mainstream, and he was beginning to acquiesce to it. Just 3 years prior, The Cure wore black leather and smeared lipstick under their eyes to look like bleeding. Now they were all dressed in tailored linen suits. At the end of '84, as a maturing musician and rising star, Smith looked in the mirror asking, "What do I bring to this pop world that no one else does? What makes me and The Cure unique if I were to reboot the project?" And looking back on those 2 years of lunacy with the pop hits, the dream singles, the Banshees, the Glove, what Smith realizes is that his unique quality is whimsy. This is what differentiates The Cure from the cold, calculated distance of a New Order, the insufferably clever Smiths, or the increasingly cartoonish panto of goth groups coming up like the Sisters of Mercy. You know, going back to that mantra of that primary lyric, the further we go, the older we grow, the more we know, the less we show. The thing that separates The Cure is that Smith stays in touch with whimsy and with youthful wonderment. And what cements its importance to him was being in the Banshees and seeing how their lack of whimsy, of any sense of fun in their music and performances, and how dramatic and consistently harrowing the Banshees were, held them back from crossing over in the charts for many years. Robert has experienced both extremes. He's been as melodramatic as one can on Pornography, inspired by albums like Juju, and he's also found chart success on his own terms with pop hits like Let's Go to Bed and The Love Cats, influenced by Mark Allman and the Human League. He's also looking at one of his biggest heroes, David Bowie, and what Bowie achieved with Let's Dance. And around this time, continues to lean into this weird, quirky disco character he conjures up, evolved first out of Alice in Wonderland-inspired piss takes like Mr. Pink Eyes, before becoming more Bowie influenced. It's witchcraft. With all these new personas to explore in roughly 15 demos, Smith is ready to steer The Cure towards a sweet spot where mood and melody could live side by side. By the close of 1984, The Cure was in the middle of another behind-the-scenes shakeup. Drummer Andy Anderson's exit came under turbulent circumstances. Joining just prior to the Top, He brought a distinctive fluid style to the band's live sound, but personal and professional clashes, along with relentless touring, soon took their toll. He was replaced before the American leg of the tour, first briefly by Vince Ellie of the Psychedelic Furs, and then by Boris Williams of the Thompson Twins. Bassist Phil Thornley, who had stepped in after Simon Gallup's departure, also bowed out after the Top tour. A capable player and renowned studio whiz, having produced Pornography, Thornley was always more stopgap than fixture, balancing outside studio work with the band. Life on the road under Robert Smith's volatile schedule proved draining, and by year's end, he returned to the steadier world of production. Thornley's exit was hastened by Chris Perry and roadie Gary Biddles, who brokered a reunion between Smith and Gallup. During his 18 months outside The Cure, Simon kept busy with Fool's Dance, alongside former Cure keyboardist Matthew Hartley, releasing an EP of Cure Light tunes. So Simon agreed to the setup, and with that, Gallup and Smith got drunk and made up. Once the dust settled early in 1985, Simon Gallup was back in The Cure to play alongside Pearl Thompson, former Easy Cure member who rejoined prior to the Top. With Simon back in the fold, The Cure regained a certain lad energy, at least behind the scenes. Back in the Trilogy days, Simon and Robert were like the band's own toxic twins, always egging each other on. Simon brought a sneering punk rock attitude that meshed perfectly with Robert's intensity, and the two fed off each other's energy. Although this new lineup was a bit hesitant, Robert was ecstatic. This is the band he's been after all along. He's got his childhood friend Lol on keys. With Boris, he's got a phenomenal mid-tempo rock drummer who also happened to have a strong visual presence. His best mate Simon is back, bringing not only musical chemistry, but a certain image boost. Pearl, meanwhile, is practically family. He's romantically involved with Robert's sister Janet and carries himself like a classic Jimmy Page-style gunslinger. His guitar playing is effortless, and in the American market especially, he helped The Cure earn respect from more macho guitar fans, setting them apart from the purely synth-pop acts. Robert now has a solid, distinctive band, each member an individual force, yet fitting together in that classic rock lineup way. Everything I'd ever dreamed of doing was coming to fruition. I suddenly realized there was an infinite amount of things I could do with the band. The Cure were about to enter their golden age. In February 1985, the new Cure, Smith, Tolhurst, Gallup, Williams, and Thompson, convened at F2 Studios in Tottenham Court Road, where Smith premiered a tape of demos that would form the nucleus for their next album, The Head on the Door. Gallup, lacking confidence in his own playing, doubted he could keep up with a player as skilled as Williams. But, much like with his reunion with Smith, a few beers quickly eased his nerves. The Head on the Door's songs started to come together by spring, with sessions moving between Angel, Townhouse, and Genetic Studios. Dave Allen, whose first major credit was that of co-engineer on the Human League's 1981 breakthrough album Dare, co-produced alongside Smith, with additional production support by Howard Gray and Frank Beretta serving as engineer. The sessions went smoothly at first, helped by a massive electric train set at Angel Studios that circled the room, each car loaded with booze. But despite, or maybe because of this playful setup, serious cracks were starting to form between Tolhurst and the rest of the band. Quote, "I wasn't aware enough to decide what the problem was. I just thought, well, I'll carry on drinking. I'd sit in the studio getting very upset at myself for not being able to play something or think of a good idea, which I'd always been able to do before." Tolhurst's answer was to simply keep drinking. He did get a slightly better credit on The Head on the Door of keyboards instead of other instruments, but unlike the Trilogy days, his participation was minimal, save for recording a few keyboard riffs. And it wasn't his fault, as many of his contributions were reportedly passed on. With this album, every song was a Robert Smith original. The rules were clear. Smith was the band leader, dictator, and creative force. Robert himself wasn't in a much healthier state of mind for this album. The Head on the Door still explored familiar territory. Drugs as a theme on Screw or Inspiration, the B-side New Day, which Smith called a drug-induced improvisation, frustration with time on Sinking, and his darkest nightmares, Close to Me, The Baby Screams. He'd mined this negativity before, but now it was paired with a burst of musical free thinking that would soon make The Cure unlikely stars. At their core, these were pure pop songs, catchy and easy to sing along with, yet layered enough to reveal Smith's shifting moods on closer listen. Quote, "I wanted to write moody songs and pop songs and put them on the same record. I knew that there were people ready to accept the two things at the same time. There was a real sense of being in a band for the first time since 17 Seconds. It felt like being in the Beatles, and I wanted to make substantial Strawberry Fields style pop music. I wanted everything to be really catchy." Boris Williams was the only member without past history with Robert, quickly bonding with him and becoming a key part of The Cure's magic. Boris was thrilled to leave the lucrative but dull world of the Thompson Twins for a wild, real rock band, one of the few still standing. Fittingly, his excitement is the first thing you hear on the record. The first song the public got to hear was the single In Between Days, released on the 19th of July, 1985. And from the onset, it's clear this is a very different version of The Cure. Widely regarded as one of their best songs, In Between Days pairs jangling acoustic guitars and a propulsive bass line, sounding more than just a tad similar to Dreams Never End by New Order, a favorite of Smith. Robert had never made any secret of his ambition to create the best possible music with The Cure. Now he wanted to sell that music to as many people as possible. Quote, "I was looking for a bigger audience. It wasn't to do with being well known. I wanted more people to hear us. I thought we were in danger of disappearing a bit." In Between Days wasn't just a standout track, it was a catalyst. The energy and urgency of the song demanded a visual counterpart that matched its forward momentum. To achieve that goal, a call was made to Tim Pope, already responsible for music videos for The Cure like Let's Go to Bed, The Love Cats, etc. On June 18, 1985, the band entered Fulham Studios to film a performance video of sorts, albeit one with a wildly surreal touch. Pope designed a minimal but stylized set that enhanced the performance through motion and texture. The concept was simple: let the band perform, surround them with 360-degree tracking shots, inject the frame with color and eccentricity, and let the personality come through. Pearl's guitar headstock was fastened to a camera, and in other scenes, Robert Smith had a camera held by cables which he could push away or hold at will. Meanwhile, the band spent the entire clip being pursued by a battalion of flying fluorescent socks. Then, around the halfway point, Pope superimposed the same fluorescent colors on the rest of the group, creating the ominous presence of these paranormal doppelgangers, which would also get used for the single's sleeve design. The focus wasn't on spectacle, it was on capturing Robert Smith's unique intensity, something that Pope understood instinctively. As he put it, "I just do a close-up on his face and let him go a bit mad." The shapes were supposed to be a kind of blurry color effect, but when we got the video back, they looked exactly like socks. Robert was really pissed off. MTV didn't mind, however, because the clip quickly went into maximum rotation. The In Between Days video marked the arrival of The Cure's full-blown, large-haired, baggy-clothed, lipstick-smeared phase. In addition to the video, Fiction and Polydor embarked on an aggressive release campaign. There were several versions of the single, and In Between Days had a sister song released in the UK versions, one of the most cherished pop songs The Cure's ever recorded, and it's not on the album, The Exploding Boy. Smith described the song as perfectly capturing the happiness he felt playing in the new lineup, though he admitted it was too structurally similar to In Between Days for an album where each track had its own distinct sound. In the 80s, a 7-inch wasn't just marketing. It was a key source of income. You weren't just selling a kid a record, but an LP and 2 singles. That's also partially why The Exploding Boy was left off the album, but I think it also reflected Robert's desire to give his fans strong B-sides. Speaking of B-sides, they were also a place for material that was a bit too experimental, like A Few Hours After This, a masterpiece loved by nearly every Cure fan, with sweeping, grandiose soundscapes that feel like a 17th century costume ball and lyrics foreshadowing "Kiss me, kiss me, kiss me." It's one of the clearest glimpses of where Robert Smith's craft was headed after The Head on the Door. Also on North American 12 inches was a brilliant extended mix of In Between Days, now long deleted. It's on YouTube and I'll link it below. Why it wasn't included on the remastered album or the expanded mixed up reissues still baffles me. In Between Days 7-inch. In Between Days, backed with The Exploding Boy. North American 12-inch. This had the B-side Stop Dead, as well as the In Between Days extended mix. In Between Days reached number 15 on the UK singles chart and gave The Cure their first entry on the US Billboard Hot 100, peaking at number 99. A modest start, but a clear sign of growing momentum. With its success still fresh and the band touring Europe, anticipation was high for a new album. But no one could have predicted the heights that The Cure were about to reach next. On August 26th, 1985, or possibly also the 30th, Fiction Records released The Cure's 6th album, The Head on the Door. Why the confusion? Most reputable sources list August 30th, but back then, albums typically dropped on Mondays, which would have been the 26th, while North American releases landed on Tuesdays. What we do know for sure is that it wasn't August 13th, as TheCure.com claims. That's some serious George Lucas-style revisionism, especially since official charts have it entering at number 7 on September the 7th, a week after release. Case closed. The album's cover, in Parched Art's trademark style, featured a heavily blurred image of Robert's sister Janet. This artwork was meant to conjure up a vision Smith saw in a dream. What was that vision? Robert said while sick as a child, he had a dream where he saw his own detached head stuck to his bedroom door. Seems to check out with the lyric from Close to Me. So that's it? Well, at the time, he also said the following: did your mom and dad ever do puppet shows like draw a face on their hands and go, "Rah," from behind the sofa and really scare you? I've always been fascinated with puppets like Punch and Judy because the tradition is so old. There's something about the way a puppet's head will roll off. When they used to decapitate people, they put their heads on poles, and all your instincts just scream at that. So we were gonna call the album The Head on the Pole, and then I changed it. He's also said that the title refers to when his brother nailed one of his childhood doll's heads to his bedroom door. It might have inspired the dream, but as I mentioned, Robert loved messing with interviewers in the 80s. When I was young, I always thought that it was referencing Jacob Marley from Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol. Musically, more than any previous Cure album, The Head on the Door showcases a band fully comfortable in their own skin, embracing both their melodic flair and Robert Smith's darker outlook. The album opens with In Between Days, and that now iconic sound of Boris running down all the toms, drenched in massive 80s reverb, with its tight, urgent burst of jangling guitars and rolling bass, pairing upbeat pop with bittersweet lyrics that Roberts alluded to being about frustration at wasted time and some have interpreted as being about a love triangle. This move to put the single as track 1 is a very deliberate attempt to show that this is going to be a very different Cure album. Kyoto Song offers a slight breather, draped in dreamy yet unsettling gothic imagery. Its Eastern-tinged melody winds around surreal, half-sinister visions of lovers and strange dreams. A nightmare of you, of death in the pool. I see no further now than this dream. The trembling hands of the trembling man hold my mouth to hold in a scream. In a way, it feels like Robert revisiting the harrowing imagery of Siamese twins from pornography, but reshaping it into something more spectral and poetic. A ghostly echo of past darkness, softened to a strange, beautiful lull. Every voice belongs to you. Returning to the upbeat, The Blood features Spanish-flavored guitar lines wrapped around Robert Smith's melancholy reflections, inspired by his time in Portugal, discovering a particular drink. I changed it from the Tears of Christ, which is a drink. It's a very cheap Portuguese port wine that all the workers drink. I was given a bottle of it and I drank it, and I noticed the label, which is the Virgin Mary with baby Jesus under one arm and a bottle in the other hand. It's a pretty visionary drink, really. I was convinced I was Portuguese. I just sank into this reverie of being a Portuguese flamenco guitarist. It's certainly singular in the Cure's catalog. 6 different ways dials up the whimsy, repurposing a 6/8 groove, piano, and flourishes Robert originally laid down for the Banshee song Swimming Horses. Playful, almost childlike in arrangement, it represents a distinct kind of energy they haven't tapped into before. The lyrics might allude to lying to the press about all of their inane questions, the same ones he would always have to answer. And here comes one for the fans, an anthemic, soaring classic that's a reward for listening through the full album. Push is almost like Robert's Bruce Springsteen song. He never writes anything this obvious in terms of classic rock guitar progressions. Introduced by Smith during the famous In Orange concert as "About when I used to wear a dress and travel on a train," there's a 2-minute instrumental buildup of chiming guitars before the vocals arrive. But when they do, it's pure payoff. The baby screams carries over some of the acid-soaked psychedelia of the top, driven by those relentless synthetic hand claps that run through the whole track. Robert delivers one of his most unhinged and passionate vocals, unleashing the wailing heaven with raw intensity. There's also a nod to his love again of New Order. Much like The Walk had echoes of Blue Monday, here we get that continuous 16th note synth pulse simmering beneath the chaos. In many ways, The Baby Screams distills everything The Cure had achieved up to this point, a perfect storm of experimentation, pop sensibility, and sheer emotional force. Close to Me is perhaps the most experimental yet instantly catchy song so far. It's minimal, claustrophobic, yet surprisingly funky. Smith wrote the lyrics to express the feeling of impending doom he experienced during childhood nightmares and hallucinations. Specifically, there was a particular patch of wallpaper in his bedroom that would seem to come to life as he tried to sleep. This sense of doom and the nightmares returned during the recording of the song as he was under significant stress and pushing himself to exhaustion while working on it. Quote, "Of all the songs we've written, Close to Me doesn't spring to mind as one of our best songs. It was a slightly surreal moment on the record, and it wasn't even a definite album track during the recording. It was only when I did the vocal and got really extreme on the production, making it really claustrophobic sounding, that it came to life. Up till that point, it was average."
I was thinking I was sure, like my head on the door was a dream.
Dating back to 1976, A Night Like This was an old Easy Cure track, unreleased almost a decade before being reworked and recorded for The Head on the Door. I'm coming to find you if it takes me all night. A witch hunt for another girl. For always and ever is always for you. Your trust, the most gorgeously stupid thing I ever cut in the world. It's moody and cinematic, although I've personally never been able to reconcile my feelings with the album version sax solo, having heard the brilliant In Orange and Show versions first. Another fan favorite that makes an appearance at almost every show, it's bursting with yearning and unresolved tension. Screw is a throwaway psychedelic drug song that tends to be the track that most fans would swap out. This one almost always used to be a skip for me, but I've grown to love its bass-heavy groove. I remember an interview a year ago where Robert actually sung the bass line.
Down, 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 da, 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 da.
Maybe, yeah.
And if you watch the behind the scenes for the In Between Days video, if you listen carefully, you can catch Simon randomly playing it in between takes. It's dark and slinky, an odd mix of menace and wry humor, capped off with this incredible over-flanged outro riff. Unlike the previous 9 songs, Sinking is a slow, atmospheric closer, steeped in resignation. Its wash of keyboards and echoing bass, drawing the album to a haunting end. This is the serious one, the end track that on previous records, like Faith and 17 Seconds, would have given the record its title, but not here. Featuring this gorgeous piano line, this is a meditation on aging that points ahead to the sound and mood The Cure would expand and later refine on Disintegration. If only I could, if only I could, if only I could remember anything at all. As I get older, that line hits even harder. This is my 1985 Canadian pressing. Inner sleeve. Probably can't even see that. (2006) remastered deluxe edition CD. I don't know where my original CD is, buried in storage. The band in matching linen suits. Photos, lyrics, tons of stuff. Oh good, I can text for a Cure ringtone. 2025 record store day picture disc, yay! I do like that though. And the picture disc sounds surprisingly decent. One of the biggest shifts from the Cure's 1982 to 84 period to The Head on the Door is the role of the bass. In 1982 through 84, the bass lines were more restrained, almost hidden in the mix. But on Head on the Door, they're back in the spotlight. Driving In Between Days, powering Push, and anchoring A Night Like This. Even Close to Me is built around an epic bass line. That's the Simon Gallup effect. In his absence, those hypnotic, looping bass figures, so essential to The Cure's identity, were largely missing. But with him back, the band regained that steady, mesmeric pulse, and it's a huge reason The Head on the Door sounds so much more like The Cure's classic self than anything that they've made since Pornography. So now Chris Perry's faced with a tough choice for the next single. Should it be Push, Close to Me, A Night Like This? In the end, they chose Close to Me, but on the album, it almost plays like a demo. It's so stark and deliberately minimal that its claustrophobia risked missing the mark when competing for the pop charts. So, for the first time in Cure history, they tore a song down to the studs and rebuilt it. Robert agreed to re-sing some lyrics and give it a proper pop makeover. Verse, chorus, verse, a slow build, and then a glorious blast of horns, trumpets, and saxophones to send it soaring. The result was astonishing. The album version's oppressive, airless tension was still there, but as it built up, it gave way to something that felt like an ecstatic, drunken New Orleans New Year's party. It's a classic pop single, whether in its original single mix or the closer mix from Mixed Up, its brilliance always cuts through. The bass line, the playful do-do-do-do-do-do vocal, that shimmering DX7 Kodo preset melody, it's also perfect in its own little universe. And that's what's so striking about The Head on the Door. The Cure had their sound back. Not just great songs, but that unmistakable Cure identity, the kind where you hear their name and instantly hear the music in your head. So by here in 1985, following the success that they've had with In Between Days, Chris Perry knows MTV is equally as important as FM radio, and in the case of The Cure, a band that is trading in a lot of image, it's more important. And so they make another call to Tim Pope to direct Close to Me's promotional clip. Meeting with Pope a week before the shoot, Robert mentioned he had an image in mind for the sleeve of the single. The band jammed into a wardrobe about to take a tumble off Beachy Head. Pope thought the image would be wasted on a record sleeve and stole the idea for the video. According to Robert, Pope translated that as, "How can I make it even more uncomfortable?" He stuck us in a wardrobe and dropped us in a tank of dirty water. The video worked on any number of levels. It was perversely entertaining. The images seemed to match the bare-boned electro-pop song beautifully, and crucially, it stuck in the head of MTV viewers. Not only did it make global stars out of The Cure, but it also became a signature video for Tim Pope. UK 12-inch of Close to Me. And in the American market, this is the Quadpuss EP, still in its shrink, contains 2 previously unreleased tracks. Featuring A Night Like This, New Day, Close to Me 12-inch mix, and A Man Inside My Mouth. If you did a quick cut montage of early to mid-80s music videos, you'd see how much was shifting by 1985. Hair metal exploding in America, but also some alternative acts like The Cure breaking through. MTV was rapidly becoming a kingmaker. In its early years, high-concept videos like The Human League's Don't You Want Me felt groundbreaking because there was nothing else on the channel with that kind of cinematic ambition. That 3-year window paved the way for stars MTV truly made. Boy George, Cyndi Lauper, and perhaps most famously, one of the bands MTV definitely made was Duran Duran. And that's where the entire history of The Cure's do-do-do-do-do-do thing comes from Robert's outrage that a band like Duran Duran could succeed. The fact that the chorus of Hungry Like the Wolf is literally a bunch of guys going, there was a part of 20-something Robert Smith that was genuinely offended. He never missed a chance to deride Duran Duran along with George Michael and others in the press. How can this be the biggest band in the world, he'd ask. And he never really let go of that disbelief. That cheeky do-do-do-do-do-do hook became a recurring linchpin in The Cure's sound, popping up in countless tracks. Robert clung to it, and over time, it came to define him in its own way. Even though it all started from a place of mockery and derision.
It might sound naive, but until I heard The Head on the Door, I just didn't realize it was possible to write about such difficult and profound ideas, but do it in the context of accessible songs that might even get played on the radio.
In early 1986, The Cure took a breather, giving Smith time to reflect on the whirlwind 18 months since leaving the Banshees. By any measure, it had been a shrewd move. Across 2 albums and hits like Close to Me, In Between Days, and The Caterpillar, the band had become bona fide pop stars in Europe and were edging ever closer to mainstream US success. Even the fickle UK press were starting to come around, while MTV kept spinning Pope's videos, and The Head on the Door clung to the charts like a hook in a catchy chorus. With 2 hit singles under their belt, plus A Night Like This and The Blood getting limited releases in the US and Spain, Chris Perry saw the perfect chance to reintroduce America to the band with a greatest hits album. That became Standing on a Beach. Now Robert, with all his punk rock hang-ups, worried this might dilute the band, upset his fans, and he wanted to stay authentic. So, like with the concert live album, he included a full album's worth of B-sides on the cassette release and sold it at a discount. This compilation became a fan favorite and served as an introduction for many to The Cure, as well as a primer to Kiss Me, Kiss Me, Kiss Me. But that's a story for another video. UK press of Standing on a Beach, and it's a gatefold, inner sleeve, Boys Don't Cry, re-released 12-inch with that iconic Robert Smith picture. And this is In Orange, The Cure's legendary performance from August of 1986. First LP, second LP, Orange. I think the audio is from the Laserdisc version, so pretty decent sound quality. It's missing a couple tracks though. Robert, if you're listening, the bootleggers are eating your lunch. This whole period, even with The Head on the Door darting in all directions musically, was about Robert starting to take things seriously. The band was presenting itself as a unified front, backed by smart moves. The release of The Head on the Door, the Standing on a Beach compilation, the Boys Don't Cry reissue, and the spectacular Antique d'Orange concert in France, captured in 35mm by Tim Pope. Sure, this guy's hair's wild and he wore makeup, but he was sharp, gave great interviews, and was part of the band that delivered hit singles you could count on. The Cure became a viable commercial commodity. From here, their artistry and profile would soar to even greater heights. So, that's gonna do it for today. I'm gonna link below a fascinating behind-the-scenes look at the In Between Days video, along with The Cure's In Orange and Standard Depth. Somebody did throw a 4K upscale on YouTube, but there's way too much skin smoothing, and some scenes, people's faces start to look like monsters, so avoid that one. Also, if you haven't heard The Cure's cover of Gary Glitter's Do You Want to Touch Me from the Head on the Door tour, it's down there too. For further reading and listening on The Cure's Head on the Door album and era, there's Jeff Apter's Never Enough. Lol's book, Cured, A Tale of Two Imaginary Boys, is excellent. I have it digitally. The Cure, a visual documentary, and The Cure on Record are fun. Gosh, there's so many books, endless. Podcast, there's the Holy Hour podcast. They're doing a retrospective on The Head on the Door. Shallow Rewards has one that's excellent. If you enjoyed this video, kindly give it a thumbs up. And consider subscribing so you don't miss my upcoming post-punk 1982 video, where I'll be diving into The Cure's pornography. What do you think of The Head on the Door, and where would you rank it in The Cure's discography? Let me know below, as well as if you've got an idea for another video topic on The Cure. Thanks for watching. You can see more of my Cure videos right here. Take care of yourselves, and we'll see you guys in the next one.